All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to talk to you today. It is Wednesday, May 15th. No, yeah, it is Wednesday. I was thinking I had to guess yesterday, so it was yesterday, Monday, because of course Monday is Arlen Day. We always talk to Arlen. It was Charlie, and really enjoyed the conversation with Charlie as well. Got a call in from Bill. Bill didn't make it on the air, though we tried. But there were some problems, I guess, with the connection. Anyway, hope you'll join me. Hope you'll call. I was pleased to get that call because they have been very, very few and very far between. Don't forget, click that subscribe. There you go. You can see the bell ringing. I put the subscribe up to start the live stream rather than bring it in within the first minute or two. So a little bit of a switcheroo, a little change up. Yeah, I've got kind of a cheery voice, but it's not a cheerful day. This is the day that the Palestinians, that is May 15th, the Palestinian people commemorate, lament as the day of Nakba, the original Nakba, as they see it, the catastrophe of Israel, the founding of the State of Israel, which resulted directly in the expulsion of many hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. There is dispute. Did they leave voluntarily? Were they called to leave by the surrounding countries and leaders in their communities? Or did the Palestinian people leave because of pressure by Israelis, including violence by armed militias, violence by Jewish settlers? And I went through the Wikipedia history. I looked as much as I could possibly get, and I'm not an expert by any means, but it does seem pretty clear that the deportation of Palestinians from what became Israel in the late 1940s was not voluntary. It was not done at the behest of Palestinian leaders or Arab countries. It was largely driven, but the great majority of the departures was driven by Israel, by Jewish settlers, by Israeli leaders, by violence that they either participated in directly or fomented among either long-time Jewish residents or new settlers from Europe. So this is not something that Israel can claim, oh, they just didn't want to be part of our state. We were certainly happy to welcome them as the Palestinian people, the Muslims, and the Christians, the non-Jews who had been living in that region for millennia, just as some Jews had been. They were not welcome. They were not told or invited to be part of a greater Israel that would be a welcoming place, a happy place, a joyful place for the folks who had lived in that area for countless generations. That was not the case at all. This was foreseen by the leaders in Israel as a place for Jewish people to live, and anyone else get out. And that is why the Palestinians call it the Nakba, the catastrophe. And of course, now the Israel has completely bared its fangs. There's no kid glove whatsoever. They're just massacring Palestinians. It is a horrible, horrible thing. It's a tragedy. It's a genocide, is what it is. And I have said, I think in part, as a Jewish person, this reflects kind of the fact that the past isn't past, it isn't even dead, and what was done to Jews in Europe 80 plus years ago is now being visited upon Muslims, Palestinians in that region by Jews. And I said 80 years, so what? The Holocaust was from 39 to 45 during World War II, so not even a full 80 years ago did it end. 79 years within the memory of some people alive today, many people. And that history, that bloodshed, that violence that Jews suffered tragically, some are now visiting on another ethnic group, another identity group, another group that lives in a particular region. And I would just add that it's not all Jews, right? It's many are decrying this. I am decrying it. Many others are saying this is just simply wrong. There really is no champion of the Gazan people. There's no Palestinian hero in Congress, certainly not in the Senate to this extent. There's anyone in the U.S. Senate who has made some truly brave statements in support of the Palestinian people. It's Bernie Sanders as much as anybody. I know we talked about Chris Van Hollen. He's done some of the right things, but he also did vote for that weapons shipment that he's now calling on Biden not to use, right? Not to actually send the weapons, but he voted to authorize it. At least Sanders voted against that, and both Van Hollen and Sanders have voted, have sent a letter signed by several other Democratic senators to stop shipping weapons of destruction, bombs, bullets, guns, missiles to Israel. The Middle East report from Ahmad Osmar, he's a Turkish journalist. They're quoting from the Ministry of Health, which has been repeatedly deemed to be accurate, its figures reliable. I mean, of course, in the, quote, fog of war, unquote, they may get some things wrong, but no one's disputing that these numbers are, except for a few people who really don't have any knowledge whatsoever. They're just purely partisan, pro-Israel supporters. They may be dismissive of or trying to find fault with the numbers, but even pro-Israel media outlets are relying on these numbers. The Gaza death toll soared to 35,233. This was earlier today. 60 killed, 80 injured in 5 Israeli massacres in Gaza in the last 24 hours. So again, they bombed what they call an internet hotspot. I suppose that was some sort of a coffee shop or some place where there was internet. The Israeli army fearing that maybe Hamas was using, that was Hamas activity that showed that there was an internet hotspot there, but apparently it was just all civilians and bombing schools and the like. So the death toll just keeps on climbing in Gaza. The massacring by Israel doesn't stop, and we talked about this yesterday too. It's expanded. It's not just now in Rafah. It's not just in Khan Yunis. It's all over Gaza, because the ultimate goal of Israel, or the stated goal to eliminate Hamas, is not possible. As long as there are people there, there's going to be a resistance to what Israel's doing. And call them terrorists, call them whatever you want. Yes, they used terror, they used murder at that music festival on October 7, but this will just continue. The only way to stop it is for Israel to bring justice to the Palestinian people, to treat them as what they are, human beings who have a right to self-determination and a right to be full and equal citizens in that country. Call it Israel, call it Palestine, call it whatever you want. I know that would be a huge fight, right? If you somehow could wave a magic wand and force Israel to do the right thing, not just the right thing for the Palestinian people, but even for their own people. Even if you could somehow force them to do it, then you'd still have to argue over what's the right name. But, I don't know, flip a coin, call it Palestine, Israel, but whatever you call it, if there was a truly just state in that region that included all the residents as free and equal citizens with freedom of religion, ultimately it would tamp down the violence. Ultimately it would greatly reduce the killing, and it would increase security for everyone. But in the short run, sure, there would be a lot of violence, a lot of murders. People aren't just going to forget. But, the troubles that Ireland went through for 100 years at least, up until the end of the 1970s into the 1980s even, you had the Irish Republican Army, so-called, committing terror acts throughout Great Britain, including Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland against the UK Army, against the English. And once they came to an agreement and the English left Ireland and they said, okay, Ireland is Irish, we're going to get out. Once they did that completely, then the killing stopped. The terrorism stopped. Now, some would say, well, you can't reward terrorists. You rewarded the IRA. And, some of those people are really bad people. Jerry Adams was a bad, I don't know if he's still alive. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But it seems pretty clear that he killed innocent people. He destroyed families. He did some really bad stuff. And the English gave him kind of a pass when they finally resolved the fight with the IRA and said, okay, you can have your independence. True, complete independence. When they finally gave in, they also agreed that they weren't going to pursue criminal charges against the IRA. And maybe that isn't true justice. Maybe there should have been some kind of way to go after some of those IRA killers. But the problem is that they were fighting for independence. They were fighting for some kind of liberty for the people of Ireland. And the English ultimately just said it's not worth it, just fine. And I think they were right to do it because they recognized that they had brought so much violence on themselves and on others in that on that island, the island of Ireland and the island of Great Britain. So Israel is going to have to say if they really truly want peace, if they truly want justice. It seems clear they don't. Well, yeah, some of those October 7 perps are maybe they're going to walk, because in the ultimate scheme of things, what's most important is that going forward, the violence stop, the killing stop, and that everyone have some measure of security. All right, so the Nakba, let's get into that, and we'll talk about the squad. We'll talk about Maryland as well. But I did just do a little more research, trying to figure it out. I mentioned earlier that I don't view the departure of the Palestinian, the great number who now want, demand right of return. I don't think that the Israeli claim, and I know that Dershowitz, right, the kind of grandstanding Harvard lawyer, big shot guy, who claims, the Palestinians left voluntarily, or they left because their leadership told them, or what have you. That just doesn't seem to be borne out by the facts. The facts are much more weighed heavily towards the theory that the Palestinians were pushed out by Israelis. They were pushed out by Jews. They were pushed out by settlers who wanted a Jewish state, a majority Jewish state, that they feared would not be the case unless they expelled, if they pushed out, if they scared off, 750,000 Palestinians. So they marked that Nakba now in the shadow of war in Gaza, and they selected the day. I was trying to figure out, well, why is it May 15th? Because this was an ongoing process. It wasn't just like one, day or one specific event that led to the Nakba, but the war with Egypt, Jordan, and Syria began on or the day after May 15th. So that apparently is why they chose that date, because during and prior to that war and during that war, Israel pushed them out. And Nakba does really refer specifically to 47, 48, and the conversion of Palestine from what was once a multi-ethnic enclave into a Jewish state. Let's just get one more slide up here. This is, I think it's from Reuters. I don't know. Yeah, it's Reuters. All right. So you'll see that there. Palestinians commemorated the catastrophe. That would be today, Wednesday. It's, still Wednesday, I guess, in the Middle East, but almost Thursday. Hundreds of thousands dispossessed from their homes. And again, that war began the 14th. All right, you're watching Halitics. I'm Hal. Give me a call, 240-283-7262, 240-283-7262. And again, please, subscribe, man. I'm begging you. Put in a lot of time and effort, energy into these live streams, and I really enjoy doing it because I learn so much. And it kind of keeps me sane. But it would mean a lot more if I knew a lot of you were out there watching, interested, and also dialoguing with me. So love to hear from you again, 240-242-5646. Comment, chat. I'm not always great about that. The chat is kind of tough because there's so many moving parts right now, and I can't always get to everything, but I'm going to try to remind myself to keep an eye on that chat because I know sometimes I miss chat, and I do want to thank you and also respond to you if you take the time to comment while I'm live. 240-242-5646, and this is from Al Jazeera. So I'm going to get a video up. This is, again, we're talking really, one of the most important things to me, just as it is for the protesters in the United States, the college protesters, and around the world, to center the victims of oppression, of colonialism, of rich over poor. And so the most obvious victims right now, the ones who are suffering the most, are the people of Gaza. It's the deadliest place on the planet. Was, by the way, Ukraine. Now it is Gaza, and this is from my go-to site, of course. That would be Al Jazeera. So let me play a video. This doesn't have the audio, so we're going to. It has music. It doesn't have the audio, so we're going to show it, but I'll try to explain as it's playing. For you, if you're not, say you're, taking a walk or what have you while I'm doing this, while you're listening, watching the live stream. So the video opens with a shot of a road in Gaza, and here we go. Let's play it. Hundreds of thousands fleeing in Gaza. 500,000 people in a country of less than 3 million moved. Israel forces attack from north to south.
حلب، ومن حلب على الشفا، ومن الشفا رجعنا حلب على أبو زيتون، وأبو زيتون حلب، وهينا راجعين تاني مرة، مش عارفين حنا وين نروح.
What can we do? We have to move all over the country. Calling it now the new Nakba. What's happening? You can see these camps, people just jammed together under palm trees. Tents. And again, the new Nakba, they were pushed out to make way for the creation of Israel. Let's stop it for just a second, see how it is so appropriate and tragic to call it a new Nakba, because the first Nakba was caused by the creation of the state of Israel. Palestinians pushed out to create a majority Jewish state. And now a new Nakba, Palestinians being pushed around at the, like the wind blown around by this powerful army. And again, it does appear very clear, especially on the West Bank, where more and more Palestinians are being killed, displaced, made homeless for more Jewish settlements, just as Israel was to a significant degree ethnically cleansed to create space, Lebensraum, as the Germans would say, for Jews. Now this appears to be the same playbook in Gaza. Some folks just on the beach and you think, oh, it's so nice, it's the Mediterranean. How nice it would be not if you're there with thousands and thousands of people jammed together with cars, exhaust, and the tide coming in. Many are on the very edge of the shoreline there. We're in a very small city. It's called, in Israel, it's known as the City of Peace, this gentleman is saying, someone from that town, Deir al-Balah. Extremely overcrowded with residents. And now he's got people from all over Gaza. No room for them, facilities. And it says it's fighting in Rafah, but also it's bombarding the north and central regions of the country as well. So I mentioned that the 60 dead reported within the last 24 hours or so was described as resulting from massacre. So not some sort of armed forces fighting each other, tanks going up against anti-tank guns, nothing like that. Just bombs, innocent, children, people being targeted. And so there you see a school shelter that was a target. And so there you have moving back and forth across Gaza, dead littering the roads. And this process of displacement. Now this man is saying, I'm going to head back to Khan Yunis. Of course, Khan Yunis was subject to terrible bombardment.
خان يونس مواصل خان يونس والله يعلم كمان يمكن كمان كم يوم اليهود برضه يقولوا لنا اخلوا على مكان ثاني تعبنا الوضع اصبح المال والمعنى والنفس كله تعبان.
Financial situation, mental state have deteriorated, of course.
اتمنى من الله انه تنحل القصه هذه.
And you can see a young boy there standing in just a tent city.
تعبنا والله الواحد ما ضل معه ولا شيء.
Can't take it anymore. So that's what Israel's doing. We're seeing it, the absolute horror for people in Gaza, and we're supporting it. And for those of you who would say, well, not anymore, no, Hal, come on, be fair to Joe Biden. He's announced a pause, right? No. This is from military.com, but several other sites, including Al Jazeera, are quoting the exact same story, providing the exact same story. The pause is over. So yesterday, the administration announced it's going to continue. It's going to send more weapons. Another $1 billion are going to go of the authorization. And so, that's why it was really, and I love Charlie, and I know his heart is absolutely in the right place. And so many of us we want to believe, we just want to believe, there are people on our side in Washington. There are people who really do not just care, right? Because I do think Chris Van Hollen really cares. I think Bernie cares. I think maybe the squad, I think they probably do care, but they don't care enough to fight. They don't care enough to take on corporate elites, the political ruling class. They just don't. They're not prepared to sacrifice anything And that's what's so horrible about this. And these are people who, they're comfortable. They're elites themselves. What would they even be sacrificing? Chris Van Hollen is going to get reelected no matter what he does. I guess maybe he'll be targeted. I don't know. He's got to run well, he's not running against Hogan. Hogan's running for Cardin seat. I don't know. Maybe he would lose, so you'll lose. You're a lawyer. Go back to your corporate law firm where you were making a hell of a lot of money than you're making as a senator. I know that sucks. I know it's not like something you would want to do because Van Hollen's already got a nice home. He's affluent. He's very comfortable. He doesn't need more money, and being a lawyer in a corporate law firm is awful. But you know what? Do the right thing. Stand up to the administration. Vote against the aid, authorizing the aid in the first place. Don't just write a letter afterwards and tell Biden, don't use the authorization we already gave you. So the pause is over. Biden just approved a shipment of $1 billion more in weapons and ammo. And for those who say, well, maybe the pause accomplished something, there was some good that came out of it, we've been through this. Israel had plenty of weapons already stockpiled, more than enough to basically wipe out Rafah, to obliterate it, to turn it into rubble. So it was a performative nonsense, is what it was. That's not what the squad, I guess, thought. This is from the National Desk. I'm not quite sure what that is. I wanted to try to find out because I want to, I don't like to cite from news sources unless I have some idea what their biases are, but this is accurate. I mean, it's not really a controversial statement. The squad takes victory. This is 1 week ago, yet tomorrow. Squad takes victory lap over Biden's Israel crackdown. Look, guys, it's working. Our insider strategy is working. We've been pressuring Biden. We're saying no more help, no more aid to Israel. And guess what? He listened to us. It's not true that we're just a bunch of, do-nothings with no power, no real influence. Those on the, hard left who criticize us, they're enemies. They're Trumpistas, Trumpanzees. I've heard that term used for criticizing Democrats, including the squad. I've been called a Trumpanzee. So their response is, hey, guess what? Biden stopped shipping arms. We're winning. We've got the power now. I mean, what a frigging joke. I'm just embarrassed. It's embarrassing that people would still support them. I guess the argument would be, well, they're better than the others. But in a way, they're not, because what people like AOC and Raskin and Jamal Bowman do is they kind of provide cover for the whole party. They get to say, hey, there really is a viable opposition within the Democrat Party. You don't have to go to the Green Party if you really want to make things better. That's the argument they can kind of make. And it obviously maintains the duopoly, right? It maintains the two parties that are really one party, one corporate military party that fights over cultural issues that are far less meaningful and important to the great majority of Americans. I'm not saying abortion isn't really important. It is. The right to reproductive rights is really important. But because that is the area of divide that seems to be the biggest right now between the two parties, it allows them to perpetrate endless war, to perpetuate it, to continue to offshore. And I know Biden put in some new tariffs and what have you, but it's not nearly sufficient to bring back jobs to this country. Endless war in Russia as well, the militarism that is world destroying, the fossil fuel, the support for the fossil fuel industry that is world destroying, that is clearly existential threat that is coming to fruition. So yes, it is really important that people have the right to decide whether they're going to have babies. No argument. But if you really want that right, then you need to vote not for Democrats, but only for true progressives. You need to fight tooth and nail for some kind of economic justice for every American. Otherwise, the demagogues are going to win. And they will use your right to reproduce or not to reproduce as a lever to divide us, to divide poor, struggling, working people. We got to move beyond that. So there's AOC. President Biden enforcing conditions on U.S. military aid and holding the Israeli government to the same bar we hold all our allies to. At POTUS's historic shift to include Israel in U.S. standards. Okay, that lasted for 1 week, AOC. And we're watching Israel acting as bloodily, as violently, as cruelly as we have seen the country act ever. This is as bad as it's ever been. Palestinians are saying this new Nakba is worse than the old one. So that historic shift lasted 1 week, AOC. Are you going to do anything about it? Are you going to speak out against it? Are you going to buck your party in any way? Get to bucking the party in just a moment. I have one more. Let me see if I can get this other clip. Okay, so I was hoping to show you, and I don't have it, of course, but we'll try to get it. Jamal Bowman also made a statement about this, in support of what Biden announced a week ago. Now it's yesterday. This is old news, right? I mean, we're not holding Israel accountable, but for a moment, he was taking a victory lap along with AOC and the squad more generally. So, folks, we got to do better. We can't. This is not working. This is not this kind of insider game. Let's try to elect some Freedom Democrats. It's going nowhere. It's not working. And I get it. Bowman says it's working. It's not working. It's not getting us anywhere. We are not closer in any way to some kind of ceasefire, to some kind of justice for Palestinians. It's just not. It's not happening. I don't know if I froze just now or not. I do want to show you that. Let me see if I can get you that quote from Bowman. Tweet is what it was, where he claims it's working, and I'm like, what are you? This is the problem. You have one decision by Biden, short-term, politically motivated, placating, an attempt to placate some of his progressive base. And they go along. They don't say, oh, we got to, I would have been so much happier. I would think, and let me say it a little differently, because who cares whether I'm happy? The squad would have had, let's get rid of that advertisement. The squad would have had so much more moral authority today, a week after this tweet by Jamal Bowman. We have to keep standing for what is right. Organizing is working. Protesting is working. Keep fighting. It would have been so much more impactful if Jamal Bowman and AOC had pledged that they're going to keep the pressure on. We're going to keep standing up and speaking truth to power. And he does say we have to keep standing for what is right, but to prepare us for the inevitable backsliding by the administration, not to, as AOC did, cheerlead him on. I mean, this was the bare minimum. I asked a friend of mine who's in the Green Party. I guess he's a friend. I don't know. I've alienated so many people. It's very, very disappointing to me. So many people are, and I was thinking about this. Why? And if you believe that you have friends in the Democratic Party, or maybe you are in the, you're active, you're an elected, or you want to be an elected, you're somewhat in, or you see yourself as somewhat of an insider, then you're really going to have trouble with somebody who just says, no, this party is corrupt. This party is past saving. It's not, it's irreparable. So you can't go there, because if you do that, you're going to alienate the people you rub shoulders with in the Dems. So that's a real problem, even for people who are pretty darn progressive, if they're part of the Democratic Party. And then I don't like the focus on woke stuff. I don't like the identity politics at all. And the Green Party, which I agree with on economic and environmental issues to a far greater degree, of course, than the Democrats, has really embraced identity politics. And I have a big, big problem with that, because I think it's counterproductive. I think it's harmful. And I don't think there should be, I disagree with the notion there should be a hierarchy of victims. And whether you're a victim or not depends on your sexuality, on your gender, on your race. No, it depends on whether you're a victim. Are you poor? Do you have access to health care? Are you being bombed? The answers to those questions determine whether you're a victim, not whether your great-great-great-grandparents were slaves. I mean, there's a correlation. There's causation, but not every descendant of slaves is a victim in today's America. And not every descendant of slave owners, not every white descendant, a lot of black descendants of slave owners, obviously, but not probably pretty much every African American can count among their ancestors an enslaver. But not every white descendant of a slave owner is a victimizer. Some of them are victims too. Some of them are homeless too. Some of them lack health care too. So I reject this idea that we determine who a victim is by the color of their skin, by whether they, are transgender. That's not what a victim is. A victim is somebody who doesn't have enough. A victim is someone who faces a physical, emotional, mental abuse. I asked my Green Party contact, do you know whether the squad or any of its members have ever considered leaving the Dems and joining the Green Party? It seems to me that this would be such a wonderful dynamic, right? You got elected, you got in power, you are you won as a Democrat, but you realize that your values are simply not reflected by the Democratic Party platform, by the Democratic Party leaders. People like Hakeem Jeffries, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, they're not consonant with you on issues that really matter: war and peace, healthcare, education. So leave. You've got a name for yourself. You're super popular. You leverage that to build up the Green Party. And I wasn't sure, I had no idea. And what my Green Party contact responds, there's been outreach for sure. AOC at least has been very directly contacted, approached. And my contact says, I think they don't see a path to building viable power outside the Democrats and much less in the Green Party. Okay, I get that. I get that you don't think the Green Party is viable. That may be true. I don't disagree with that. I hope it's not true. But here's the problem. What alternative is there? You aren't building viable power inside the Democratic Party. You don't have any influence over the policies that the party pursues. The Justice Dems, the Squad, whatever you want to call them, their priorities have been completely deprecated by today's Democratic Party. So there is no path, and you know it. to building viable power within the Democratic Party. So what do you have to lose by becoming green, by trying to build up the Green Party? Nothing. And if you, for whatever reason, you don't like the Green Party, I got my issues with the Green Party too. I don't like that identity politics crap. I got a huge problem with it. I think it's counterproductive. I think it makes things worse. I think the idea of hierarchy of victims based on anything other than how hungry you are, how poor are you, how likely are you to be displaced, are you subject to violence? I think those are how we determine whether someone's a victim and who's the more who needs help more now, right? Homeless people in the United States really, really need help. People without health care need help. Maybe not quite as much right now in this moment. People in Gaza, they need help more than anybody. So that's your hierarchy of victimhood. Not, okay, well, white men are at the top and then white women or maybe black men or Latino or whatever, or Asians, and then we move down and then the people at the very bottom are black women. Well, some black women are, maybe a higher percentage of black women are, but Oprah is, sure ain't. So I got my big beefs with the Democratic Party, with the Green Party, at least when it comes to identity. But that said, the Squad agrees with that. The Squad is big on woke politics. The Squad is big on identity as a marker for victimhood. So you think they would be all in with the Green Party, but they're not. They'd rather stay in the Democratic Party. And I really have a lot of, I don't even really understand. Well, here's why. Here, I actually do understand it. Because they're not really progressive. They don't, maybe they were at one point, and maybe some of them still are, but they want to become president. They want to become House Majority Leader. They want to become Senate Majority Leader. So that'll never happen if they're green. At least that's how they perceive it. Yeah, I know. I hear from people, oh, we're making a difference. I heard this, maybe it was this morning when I was listening to a very pro-Palestine station, which was a revelation, it was Pacifica. And I think one of the guests said, hey, we're really seeing a shift in Congress. We're really seeing movement. And again, I'm just a guy. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? What? Because a few senators wrote a letter? They issued a strongly worded letter to President Biden. That's a change? He just sent another $1 billion. He just authorized the sending of another $1 billion in aid. What change are you seeing? You're going to say, okay, well, you know what? They're, even if they're not, the current Democratic establishment isn't really changing, but the new one will. The next one, there's going to be, it's like people always say, oh, well, when the next generation grows up. I remember hearing this. I've been hearing this for the last 3 generations. Things will change when we get a new generation in power. And I'm like, what are you, out of your friggin' mind? Why? Why would this new generation somehow, I guess they care more about the environment. I think there is that. But the ones who make it big, who get wealthy and powerful, they're going to be happy with the way things are. And they're going to stifle change. And they're not going to promote it. So this idea, oh, some new, we just have to wait. Wait for what? For half of Manhattan to be underwater from global holocaust, a climate holocaust? Wait for Gaza to be rubble from north to south, east to west? I mean, what are you waiting for? Last night, those of you who say, well, we're really moving. We're pushing the Democratic Party to the left. So you didn't see it last night. On the election front, the political establishment, this is from the Jewish Daily Weekly, which, by the way, is very conservative, very pro-Israel, very centrist, and very alarmist. They're constantly terrified. They're constantly raising warning signals. Oh, Israel's in danger. We could lose. Chris Van Hollen could be the new face of the Democratic Party. Oh my gosh, this could spell the end of the Jewish state, that kind of thing. No, they are pretty happy about what happened in Maryland and across the country last night. I think also Nebraska and West Virginia had primaries. Incumbents and politically experienced candidates prevailed over outsiders. So the Jewish insider pleased, clearly, and we'll get into those specifics. Starting with, and it was interesting to me because I really thought, and I do think, I'm pretty confident that AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby, the pro-Israel establishment, really didn't care very much between also Brooks and Trone. And I know Trone is a member of AIPAC, right? So he got some points there. I guess he scored points there. But he had criticized Israel a little bit. We talked about this earlier in the year, that Trone had actually said, yeah, Israel's got to stop this and Netanyahu's a problem. And he got some pushback. And also Brooks has basically said the same thing. So it's interesting to me, though, that the pro-Israel lobby seems slightly disappointed that also Brooks won. And they note, as Hogan makes an aggressive push for Jewish voters in the state, right, Larry Hogan, and he certainly will do that, it will be interesting if also Brooks, I mean, the worst they can say about her, right, from the Israeli perspective, from the pro-Zionist or the Zionist perspective, is the worst they can say about her is, well, she's like Joe Biden. She embraced Joe Biden's call for conditioning military aid if Israel invades Gaza. Also Brooks has always spoken very, very strongly and favorably about Israel. She is hardly some kind of a human rights advocate. But I guess they're slightly... She was also embraced by the Democratic establishment. Steny Hoyer, I guess he's what is he, the House Whip? The Democratic Whip, right? Not the Whip House, the Democratic Whip, I believe. Or maybe he stepped down from that. He was longtime majority leader under Pelosi. Hoyer endorsed, right, corporate to the bone. Steny Hoyer endorsed also Brooks. So did Jamie Raskin. There's no reason to see her as some kind of a progressive ally or champion. The progressives in her county, in fact, were against her. They endorsed Trone, who's very centrist, very corporatist. So no hope there. And then if you look at the rest of the state, the results were, if anything, even worse. So the Jewish Week, or Daily Insider, right? The Jewish Daily Insider, very pleased with the results. Here you go. AIPAC scored a big win in Maryland's 3rd congressional district. So this was an open seat, right? The 3rd district was where John Sarbanes, who has always been maybe a center-left Dem, I guess I could say, on some issues pretty good. Sarah Elfreth won. She beat this guy, Harry Dunn. She was the AIPAC choice. She was the one that AIPAC wanted to win. She's not for Medicare for all. She's not a progressive. She doesn't have her priorities are not the stated priorities of the squad. She won. April Delaney and Joe Vogel, the top 2 vote getters in the 6th district, Trone's district, both campaigned, as the Jewish Daily Insider says, stalwart supporters of Israel. They're not going to say that, by the way. There's some noise. I hope you don't hear it. If there was any distance, any light between either Delaney or Vogel and Israel, the Jewish Daily Insider would be crying, foul, murder. Oh my gosh, look at this. These Jew haters just got elected, just won a race. So they're ecstatic two stalwart supporters of Israel won in the 6th district. Or ran. They were the top two vote getters. And Delaney, whose husband is a uber gazillionaire. I don't think he's a billionaire, so I'm not going to call him that. He's a gazillionaire. John Delaney ran for president as the no labels guy. So you're not going to get any help, squad, from the new Democrats in Congress, if there are new Democrats, because certainly also Brooks faces a tough fight against Hogan, although she's leading in the latest poll, which was, by the way, very correct. The Hill caught it. The Hill nailed it, saying that she was now leading in the race for Congress, for the Senate nomination. The Hill called it. They had her ahead after Trone had been leading in other polls, and they say she's ahead of Hogan as well. The Hill does. So probably, I'm going to guess, she's going to win. Also, Brooks is going to be the next U.S. Senator from the state of Maryland. She'll be the junior to Van Hollen Sr. And I don't see much change whatsoever there versus Cardin. Maybe just a little bit shading, a little bit of nuance, not much there. And then Delaney and Elfreth, who are the two Democratic nominees for open seats, because Trone vacated the seat in the 6th, are going to, if they win, and Elfreth will certainly win, the 3rd is solidly Democratic. Maybe Delaney won't win in the 6th, but I think she will. She's going to be paired. He's not that popular. That is a Democratic seat. You're going to get two staunch Israel supporters in there to rub elbows with AOC. And maybe Bowman. Bowman could lose. Apparently, is it Elliot Engel? He's not running against Elliot Engel. He's running against George Latimer, who's backed by AIPAC in New York State. I think probably Bowman will stay in office, but we'll see. Maybe he won't. In any event, we're not seeing any tide lifting progressives whatsoever in the Democratic Party. The only real hope for change, and by the way, that's what Americans want, right? I mean, that's how come Barack Obama won. I know we're this horrible racist country full of deplorables, and yet a black man won the presidency in 2008 with well over 50% of the vote. Why? Because he campaigned on hope and change. He says, I'm going to make things better. I'm going to fight for change. The dynamics in this country where the rich and powerful call all the shots, that's not going to be the case in my administration. We're going to get out of Iraq, and we did for a brief time, and we went back. We're going to get health care. Not really, right? So there wasn't. The hope and change that were promised were not delivered. So it's not that we have a nation of deplorables, and that's why we went in a different direction in 2016 and voted for Trump. We went in a different direction because the Democratic Party promised but did not deliver a better deal for the American people. And instead, we got even worse, arguably even worse. And I would agree. Yeah, Trump was worse. But the Democrats aren't promising anything much right now. They're not promising anything good. There's no reason to hope for anything good out of the Biden administration if they get a second term, or from the Democratic Congress if we vote them in office. We give them the power. I mean, are they talking about Medicare for all? Are they talking about bringing down military spending? Heck, the House just voted for the Republican, a right-wing Republican, to stay as House Speaker, Mike Johnson. There's just no reason, I believe, to have real hope, real optimism for the future as long as either the Democrats or the Republicans are in power. Now, I didn't feel that way in 2016 when Bernie was running. I really thought Bernie could make a difference if he won. But he was stopped. He was stymied. He was kept, in part, I'm not a big conspiracy guy. I know a lot of voters fell for the Democratic National Committee's arguments. And the end was Trump got elected. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. Love to talk to you. Sorry you didn't call in today. If anyone's watching, listening, maybe nobody is. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know, but I hope you will, if you are, keep tuning in and checking me out, sharing, and ultimately, if you're not yet, well, let's show you the real, there it is, subscribing. And I'll be back tomorrow, Thursday.